Everything always is so much better when it's free. So easy to believe there will be nothing left for the next generation. They don't make species like they used to. We're falling apart like the shitty cordless phones we make. It's cheaper to replace us than fix all the problems we've made.
All right, we're back. How you doing?
We're back.
And better than ever.
We are back.
Episode 95 is what you're turned into of Planet Green Trees, Michigan's #1 medical cannabis blog talk radio show.
The call-in number is 347-326-9626. So if you'd like to call in, please do so.
Say that number one more time, Chad.
347-326-9626.
Excelente.
I'm not giving out a CD or a book for this, but Steve Sharp wants to know. Just kidding. I might, if he really wants to. Will Mike and Chad and the group come down to the Eastern Market on Sunday? What's going on at the Eastern Market? Is there a standard signature collection, or we're just at the market? That's where signatures are going to be gathered. I don't know. I'm going to have to talk to my wife about that. But
It's Flower Day, Sunday, May 20th. Now, if you've never been down to Eastern Market for Flower Day, it's a fantastic experience to start off with.
It's huge.
It's crazy good. The colors, the vendors, the music, it's amazing. Plus, for signature gathering, it's amazingly great because it's all public property. There's 1 million people there, and you could stand there and shout as loud as you want, and no one will care because there's already a bunch of noise, too. So you can get a lot of petition signatures down there at Eastern Market. We may really make up a lot of that deficit real fast.
These people like plants.
Mm-hmm.
Go figure.
Yep. Let's do that. Let's set it up. Let's rock it out. Let's get 10,000 signatures on Sunday. Is that possible?
But if they got grubby fingers when they want to sign the petition, don't smack them down.
10,000 signatures in one day. Are there 10,000 attendees?
There's a bunch of people down there.
Yeah, Eastern Market, especially if you talk about the vendors who arrive super duper early that have their gigantic flats of flowers out.
They're all friends. Those guys are all friends.
And then, of course, it comes in waves because there's the intelligent first wave people who come there super early and then they get all the best deals. And then there's the second wave people who come with their carts because they're good. And then there's the lazy third wavers for me who come later. And if I have no parking spots, you have to go far away.
It is really fun. I've been doing it for years.
What a blast. Food is great. Oh, so many different types of music. On every street corner, there'll be a different thing going on.
Now I grow my own.
Sounds wonderful.
Yep. So, a great petition signature gathering opportunity.
Let's say it again. Sunday, the Farmers Market in Detroit.
Yep.
We know we'll see Steve Sharp there. Steve,
it says it's attended by more than 200,000 people annually. It's one of the largest flower shows in the country, and all public property.
Oh, wow.
I know Steve Sharp has been busting it all over the state.
He's good, yeah. Really working hard.
He's got that great sign in the back of his pickup truck. He also has, like Mike and I talked about previously, he had a great little a soiree for us the other day after the Lansing event with about 35 people there.
And we went to the U of M Cancer Center a few days before and hammering the point home with those folks and Dewey and his miracle dog, M. Dot. Unbelievable cancer recovery on an animal.
And just before you guys did that, Steve was actually in Lansing talking to legislators as well. So, Steve, I guess we're really pumping you up here, buddy. So let's be the leader that you are. Keep collecting signatures like a madman.
Still taking questions. Pass them through the chat room, and we're giving out at a minimum T-shirt if you want that, or no, you're right, CD. Very informative, and I'll even take questions from that after that. All right, here's a story. I want to throw this question out here.
This is a radio show though that has a call-in number too.
Call in though, better that way. Here we go. Rhode Island House passes medical marijuana dispensary bill. And I just want to talk about this because we, of course, ourselves are having a discussion as we did last week on episode 94, which can be listened in the archive. Representative Carlton talking about in great detail the intent of what he's trying to get accomplished with this provisioning center bill. But Rhode Island, knowing what it knows, it's been a few years that it's had the program going on, and it was I know, consciously went into this trying to avoid conflict with the federal government and bringing them in. So under the bill that they have moved forward with, and it's now on the governor's desk and is expected to be signed into law. Under the bill, dispensaries would be allowed to possess up to 1,500 ounces of marijuana, but the proposal would also allow law enforcement to inspect dispensaries and give the state police a seat on the board overseeing the facilities. All three provisions were added to assure the concerns of federal authorities. So the question is, is there a way to actually have a functioning safe transfer center that does not bring in the federal government, both for growing and or for distribution? Rhode Island has gone in a direction here where they are small, but also injecting law enforcement's positions on these particular agencies, putting their faces into and onto and involved with. I don't know yet that I don't know that we I don't know any community that has that level of trust yet.
Well, that's what the Rockefeller Association did back in the 20s with the medical schools. Put their people on the board and got their foot in the door. The whole thing starts over again.
Well, I can tell you what happened in the state right next to Rhode Island, which is New Hampshire. On Wednesday, the House in New Hampshire passed a medical marijuana bill that was already passed by the Senate. This will go to Governor John Lynch, but he already vetoed the same thing in 2009 because of concerns about distribution. And he will not sign it again this year because it does not adequately provide for distribution to their standards. So if we choose a path that does not involve law enforcement in these negotiations, governor's veto is one of those consequences we may have to accept. So having them involved in the room and in the conversation seems like the only way to actually get things passed as far as legislation goes.
Well,
There's no doubt about that.
You raise an important point, because in order for people to actually feel safe and not fear arrest, there has to be some kind of understanding by law enforcement that they're not going to do that.
That's the point of it.
But I want to return to the proposed bill in Michigan. In a way, I think has a direct response to this. Number one is the way things are set up, as they are right now, is explained in episode 94, Planet Green Trees Archives. The intent is not to have large-scale grows, but to have the distribution points supplied by the existing caregiver system. So you're not going to have anything different than it is right now. You're not going to have any extremism on any level of plant grow, which is always a number one, attention grabber of the federal government. So it eliminates that as a cause and purpose, which I think it also will provide a method by which the resources that are gained, if there's any profits or losses, some way to explain in some capacity where that money is going to go, which is also going to reduce concerns and liabilities. So there's some value in that aspect.
The other two items that draw the attention of the feds are large amounts of cash and large amounts of cannabis on the premises.
The appearance of a large infrastructure, which may have a medical marijuana appearance to it, but then operates similar to illegal drug operations.
But it's interesting because there's always going to be, different, in order for this thing to work, there's no question about it that the law enforcement side has to believe that there is not illegal activity going on. They are not at a point yet where they are going to just assume that the behavior that's going on within the industry is proper. And there's, in every state that's come to some conclusion in some capacity is recognizes this being another one, in the sense that they've inserted into some capacity the police. If you look at Colorado, one of the things that allowed their industry, and I'm not in favor of that at all, and I think that would be the worst thing for Michigan, but one of the things that allowed their dispensaries to develop and as they did and function was because the growing that was being taken place was highly regulated and observed, or set up to be observed by law enforcement at that time. That would have been the only way that something like that could have happened. Now,
it was
that
not
would
the
not
Rocky Mountain air.
Right. It was not. And they've run into their problems with that. But that's something that would not be necessary, I would suggest. Not be necessary, because nothing's going to change. You're not going to have the risk that's involved with having large-scale grows that's going to need to have an eye in the sky on it at every second. Where this distribution point will be coming from and being supplied by would be the existing system that exists without any kind of involvement with law enforcement at all, right?
Right.
If there's going to be any kind of activity in terms of compliance, it would be on the site, and that would be something that would be determined by the local ordinance of however it's going to be decided. But nothing should in any way change in terms of protections of caregivers or for inspection. But it's always an interesting discussion because I will tell you that this will be a discussion, and whatever state you're going to be in, the end of the line, the final debate about dispensaries is going to be, law enforcement's ability to know that there's compliance going on, and how is that going to be dealt with. Well, those are just some of my thoughts and looking into the crystal ball.
No, I think you're right, because law enforcement's not going to sign on to anything that doesn't give them the opportunity to ensure compliance. You can't pass a dispensary bill that makes dispensary grounds sacred that they're not allowed to tread on unless they have a search warrant. That's not going to fly.
In every system that I have read about as far as regulating cannabis distribution, they have pretty ready access to the public places. Law enforcement can come in at any time in Holland or in Canada, for instance, and do any inspections and cross-reference the books. And if something's out of place, there are heavy fines for it.
Right, and that kind of peace of mind allows law enforcement to endorse particular programs that might set up dispensaries in communities where they may otherwise not have felt comfortable with that. By the same token, it's unreasonable to expect dispensaries or any distribution center or any certification center to have all of their product pulled out at any time, to have law enforcement just trample on them and interfere with commerce and use their ability to access as an intimidation tactic in order to discourage the success of those enterprises. Michael, you might be worried a little bit about law enforcement taking a little excess license with some kind of a law that allowed them unfettered access, wouldn't they?
Well, if it's an interesting question, because I think that if we're talking about any other business that's going on, you're going to be subject to some kind of inspections, right? If it's a restaurant, it's going to be health inspector. If it's going to be, any other kind of commercial.
But the fire marshal makes an appointment, though. He doesn't just stop by.
True, but that very well may be how they do it. I don't know that it's it's an automatic, but it's
a more efficient use of their time. That's why they call.
Well, and let's face it, there's smaller government issues too. So if you've only got a few law enforcement officers that are devoted to dispensary compliance, then it only makes sense that you schedule these things out as well, giving them the ability to walk in at any time. Like I said, that would discourage some people from being able to go there.
Sure. I mean, but I guess that's a good question. We know. I mean, I don't want to speak for everyone else, but I would be against any kind of concept of any kind of inspection at a caregiver's home or anything in any capacity. But what is the thought in terms of people? What level do we want to have in terms of if these entities are going to exist that we're going to allow for inspections on site? Is that something that has to be? Or is it something that you're willing to negotiate away per se? Because if it's guaranteed that there's safety, or is there not enough trust at this point where? Jamie.
Well, we are licensed in Ypsilanti, and we do get inspected, and our licensing fee is based upon the cost that it takes for them to come in and see if we are compliant at any given time, and they generally come in once a quarter and see what's happening.
Do they give you notice?
No, they come in different configurations. They've come in heavily with building inspectors before and planning people, then they've come in with police before, and they seem to come in with different people depending on what they're looking for, I guess, but they've been pretty reasonable with the list of things that they're looking for is pretty consistent, and everything's worked out fine.
Is there an automatic waiver with the license, like the privilege of having the license, that you give up the?
Like an automatic consent, similar when you drive?
Yeah.
Do they check your legal compliance during that time?
They weigh stuff out?
Yeah, I think, I don't know. They don't. I'm not sure if they do or not, because they go to other places as well, and they did check out a couple of things at our place, to a degree, and they've looked at different things at different times. So, and this just got started, so exactly what they're looking for and when and what they decide to do, I really have no idea. But we do agree to be in compliance and to stay within certain parameters, and they look at that stuff, and
So it's an acceptable practice and just the cost of doing business.
I think we are fine with it because we agree to do things a certain way, and when they come in and verify that, then we're all fine.
And they've never violated HIPAA by looking at patient records or anything like that?
No, never.
Never. See, so that's what you'd consider to be an acceptable level of inspection.
Successful interoperation with the municipality.
A city community that gets it, and a business community that recognizes their level of responsibility and stands up for it.
Yeah, I'll also say I was on a little what they call a field trip with some officials of Lapeer County and Lapeer City with Jamie Fricke, who put it together. We went to some places in Genesee County, and there's some acceptance in those communities also, particularly in Burton, where the mayor and the chief of police were at one of the locations and helped to educate these other people from Lapeer.
Right, I see we have a couple callers coming. I know. Final thoughts, Steve Sharp wanted to make sure that if we can get the MOCC to get down there, he promises he'll go to their meeting afterwards. Are they having a meeting on Sunday?
Yes, they are, at Ghetto Rags.
1 to 3.
On Florida Street.
So Macomb Normal is. MOCC
Macomb Normal.
have a different
That's
meeting.
right.
Exactly correct.
Someone's going to have to negotiate that, but Steve seems to be putting some offer out. He needs some acceptance and some consideration. I think you've got a agreement, as a lawyer would say.
That guy's good as gold with me.
As far as moving on here, we've got our dear friend and loyal supporter, Miserman. He's got a question. Hello to the Misermans. Hope you guys are doing good tonight. What do you think the House will vote in adapting the measures on no caregivers with felony records? He was looking at the SB 505, and it appears that the Senate voted for this about a week ago. Is this correct?
Yes.
Yeah, the Senate did vote for that. However, it's not gone to the House. It's not been debated in the House. And that is in conflict with a version of that same rule that was just passed in one of the House bills. So I'm not certain that the House would support that bill because it would then make a portion of their bill nugatory and useless.
Well, let's talk about exactly what we mean here. There was a no felon bill. Is that what it is? It was to make it so that anyone with a felony could not be a caregiver,
right.
Not just a person who had a.
Right now, anyone that has a drug crime on their record, right, a drug felony, is not able to become a caregiver. Under the proposed House rules, House law, only people that were convicted of a violent offense would be prohibited from becoming a caregiver as well. Under the Senate rule, or the Senate proposed bill, all felons, regardless of the nature of the felony, would be prohibited from becoming a caregiver.
Well, it might get down to parking tickets by the time it's all said and done.
Now, the other thing that he could do, that Jones could do, for example, or people in the Senate, would be to take that section of the House bill that comes over that went so far as to make assaultive crimes included on that list, try to amend that to mean all felons, and then send that back to the House for them to adopt. And we hope at that point they would not, because that definitely goes way too far. We don't want it to go any further anyway, but that certainly is over the top.
I can tell you, though, if that change right there is the only thing that was changed, and if that change is the only thing that prevents that House bill from going forward for the governor's signature, the House will pass it.
I think the House will also pass it. I also think that.
I'm discouraged to have to say that, but I believe that would be the case.
I think that ultimately it's going to be very difficult for most of those members to discern the difference between the two, and will err on the side of caution.
That's very true. And again, their real driving force is so that come November or come their next election cycle, they can stand in front of their people and say, yes, I was part of the solution to that medical marijuana problem that all you folks complained about so much. Right. And it doesn't really matter that sick and disabled people are having their rights taken away. So
I think there's some reasonable discussions there that we can have at the House at that point. I don't think it would be a lost cause at all to try to halt that from happening from that perspective.
See, we got a couple calls, and I'm going to be right to you. I do want to say this. Number one, Miserman's, your choice of T-shirts or DVDs of the 10 rules, your choice. Email me your address. I'd be more than happy to send them out to you. Great question. Secondly, I wanted to say, in terms of felonies, this is just something that legal advice for those that are listening. Sometimes a prosecutor may offer someone charged with a delivery of marijuana or possession of intent to deliver marijuana, which are 4-year felonies, or manufacturing, which are the statute by which the 4-year felony comes and would be the crime that is one is convicted of and is crime that would be an exclusion from becoming a caregiver. There's a crime that in negotiations a prosecutor may offer, which is an attempted delivery of marijuana or an attempted possession with intent to deliver marijuana or attempted manufacturing of marijuana, whatever it may be. And it comes from a specific statute that is called attempted. It's an attempted statute. And what it is they add in this additional count of attempted. So you're actually pleading guilty to two things or no contest two things. And it has the impact of being convicted under the attempted statute. And what it says is that it is 1/2 of the maximum crime. So if you're charged with a 5-year felony of receiving and concealing stolen property, and they reduce it to an attempted receiving and concealing stolen property, you'd be pleading to a 2.5-year maximum. Any punishment over 2 years is a felony without a doubt. But as we know, manufacturing, possession, intent to deliver, and delivery are 4-year felonies. So when you put the attempt in front, it becomes a 2-year. And the attempted statute specifically says that it is a 2-year misdemeanor for crimes that are punishable by 4 years or less. Everyone understanding so far?
Yep.
Okay.
Essentially.
And what they sell oftentimes by the prosecutors is it's a misdemeanor. It's a high court 2-year misdemeanor if you plead guilty to an attempted delivery, attempted possession with intent to deliver. And this is one of these laws that in some capacities the answer is yes, in other capacities it's no. For example, if you went to become a caregiver after pleading guilty to attempted possession with intent to deliver, felony. If you go to try to restore your rights to possess, own, or use a weapon, felony. Is one of it's excluded as a right to possess the Second Amendment rights. You are lost by this type of attempted felony conviction. So what I'm saying to you is that there is oftentimes in negotiations, if you know of someone or participated, this attempted is not what is oftentimes is described as a misdemeanor. And in very limited instances, if any, and that's why prosecutors can tell you to your face, but they'll know that later on it is going to be an exclusion and a reduction of some of the anointed rights that you have as an American citizen. All right, so
is that called a high court misdemeanor? Something like that?
It is. There's a debate about this. And if you ask 10 lawyers, they tell you 10 different things on this. I know, though, because I've researched and spoken with, and there's been some determinations made by the Attorney General as it relates to what crimes are going to be considered drug crimes that are exclusions by the way the law is written right now. So think about that, because anyone that's charged with a crime, that's sometimes an offer that comes up, and you need to consider that as a basis.
Life I was born into has a future